Nobody has more respect for women than I do. Nobody.
Hillary Clinton wants to abolish it, believe me. She wants to abolish our Second Amendment.
I think they didn't deny it. I don't think anybody denied it.
Other presidents did not call. They'd write letters, and some presidents didn't do anything.
Many people have come out and said I'm right.
You really do have to ask yourself, where does it stop?
Hello and welcome to Fallacious Trump, Remain Indoors. This is the podcast where we use the insane ramblings of a sentient caps lock key to explain logical fallacies. I'm your host Jim.
And I'm your other host Mark. A logical fallacy is an error in reasoning that results in bad or invalid arguments. And the logical fallacy we're looking at this week is hedging. No Latin, just hedging.
Just hedging, yeah. No alternative titles for this one. So Hedging is basically where you change your story or change your point of view based on refutation or people making a good argument on the other side, but don't acknowledge that you've changed your point of view at all.
Oh, okay.
So, so it's kind of like moving the goalposts in a way, but instead of you're not kind of shifting the narrative, or you're not doing anything. You're just changing. You're claiming that you've always held this point of view, basically.
Right.
Which is kind of weird. But Trump does do this, and we've seen a lot of this recently, which is why we picked this fallacy. So our first example is, I think, the most egregious from Trump.
I didn't think, I have seen that where people actually liked it, but I didn't feel different. I've always known this is a pandemic. I felt it was a pandemic long before it was called a pandemic. All you had to do is look at other countries.
So he was asked, why the shift in tone, basically? What was it that led him to kind of suddenly start taking it seriously after he'd been saying it was all nonsense and the WHO were overblowing the mortality rate and all of this stuff? Yeah. And he's just said, I haven't changed at all. I always knew it was serious. I always knew it was a pandemic. Yeah.
Always said
which is bold.
Yeah, because we can check. Because at the very least, we can go back and go, well, no, we were here yesterday and you said that. And you go, oh, no, I've always believed all along. But it is that kind of thing where you can use those terms of phrase where you're slightly, you're not committing to anything, which he does all the time when he says, many people have said, which allows him an out later on. Yeah,
he's not saying he was saying it; just other people are saying it. So.
Yeah. You can't say I've always said that. Often. He does. He does all that thing where he just moves it across. Yeah.
Yeah. The other great thing is in that he says, I knew it was a pandemic. All you needed to do was look at other countries, which is basically the definition of a pandemic. If it's in lots of other countries, it's already a pandemic.
Yeah.
So
that's all you need to do. I've known it even before it was called a pandemic.
Yeah.
No, you didn't. You denied it was a pandemic. That was the very
so
thing
much
you
about
said
this
it
stuff.
wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
People have often wondered. Yeah. Mr. President.
So our second Trump example comes from his assertions of what Google were doing. And this is what he said in one of his daily press conferences.
I want to thank the people at Google and Google Communications because, as you know, they substantiated what I said on Friday. The head of Google, who's a great gentleman, called us and he apologized. I don't know where the press got their fake news, but they got it someplace. But as you know, this is from Google. They put out a release, and you guys can figure it out yourselves and how that got out, and I'm sure you'll apologize.
So in his head, he's brought the receipts to prove that the news is making stuff up and he was always right in what he said about Google. Here's what he said on Friday that he's referring to. He said, I want to thank Google. Google is helping to develop a website. It's going to be very quickly done, unlike websites of the past, to determine whether a test is warranted and to facilitate testing at a nearby convenient location. So he's saying, and Deborah Birx, the coronavirus task force coordinator, was saying that Google were making this website that would help you to basically figure out whether you need to have a test or not, and then tell you where you could go to get an easy test. This was the press conference in the Rose Garden where they had all of the CEOs from various companies, and Walmart was talking about giving over parts of their parking lots to drive-through tests and that kind of thing. Now, what the media reported was Google don't know what you're talking about. which is basically what came out. And less than an hour after the press conference, Google tweeted a statement from Verily, which is an associated company to Google. They're part of Alphabet, which is the company that owns Google. Yeah. But Verily is a life sciences and healthcare subsidiary. And what they were doing was working, they were in the early stages of working on a website that people could use to figure out if they needed a test that would only be for the Bay Area of San Francisco.
Right. Okay.
So it was not what Trump said at all. It wasn't Google, and it wasn't the kind of useful thing that he was suggesting was happening.
Yeah.
Now, the press release that Trump held up and said, look, this is Google telling you that what I said was right and what you printed was fake news. That was about a totally different website, which Google said that they would work on, which was simply to give people information about coronavirus, just like the latest updates and kind of good practice, basically telling people to wash their hands and that kind of thing. Yeah. It was not a website where you could screen yourself and figure out if you needed a test and where you could go for a test. Yeah. It wasn't that at all. But Trump was saying, look, see, this is the thing I was talking about at that press conference where I said something completely different.
Well, but that's basic. This is, I've realised that hedging is basically what he does, isn't it? That's his modus operandi all the time. It's like the when he did the thing of the path of the hurricane. Yeah, when it just absolutely. Kind of goes, I was talking about the hurricane, and here it is. Here's the thing I was talking about. Well, you weren't. And because the thing that you're holding up has been altered with a Sharpie. So
there is a certain amount of gaslighting that is required to make hedging work, basically. You are essentially just looking people straight in the eye and going, I didn't say what you think I said. I said what I'm saying now.
These are not the droids you were looking for. Exactly. No, we weren't even looking for droids. No, you weren't even looking for droids.
And now is the time, I think, for Mark's British politics corner.
Well, far be it from me to say it, but oh God, I miss Brexit. So with there were like no ministers deferring to experts for the truth. There was no help for the imminently unemployed. There was no dismissing of what might happen as Project Fear. And there was the £350 million for the NHS promised back in 2016. So my example is how that got promised, and then how subsequently members of the Leave campaign and then members of the Tory party kind of changed slightly what they did. They're not moving the goalposts, but they're just kind of sidestepping it and saying, because, you see, it's a subset of, and all that kind of stuff. So what I've done is a montage of things from Boris in May 2016 all the way through to Theresa May in the pre-election in...
From May to May.
From May to May 2016 to May in 2017, who was... For that election, when she called a snap election, she was still talking. People were saying to her, "Okay, about this 350 million," and we'll put up. I've edited the video together and put the dates on, and we'll put that video somehow make that available on the show notes as well. So here they all are. And the voices we hear are Boris, Nigel Farage, Jeremy Hunt, the Health Secretary, Jacob Rees-Mogg, Anna Soubry, Theresa May, and then Boris again, and Robert Peston.
And if we vote Leave on June the 23rd, we can take back control of £350 million a week and spend on our priorities here in this country, including on the National Health Service. We can take back control.
But you're not guaranteeing that money, as promised, will go to the NHS.
You must understand, I was ostracised by the official Leave campaign and as I've always done, did my own thing.
Do you think Boris apologise to you for making that pledge?
Well, we haven't left the EU yet. We are going to be leaving the EU. And obviously, when we do, if that released money for extra money for the NHS, no one would be more thrilled than me. But that is some way off around here.
Well, it's a matter of choice for government. I do not have £350 million in my personal bank account, so I will not sign your cheque, and I'm not authorised to sign for Her Majesty's government.
Mr. Shocker.
And we did say it wasn't true.
A number of claims made during the referendum campaign on both sides of the argument, and there were some passionately held views and some really passionate arguments on both sides.
Why is it not in the manifesto? Why is it not in the manifesto?
It is actually.
It's not there.
And
no,
Theresa May,
she said it
there. She said it at the launch of our manifesto.
She didn't.
She said the only way.
So Boris still lying about it, and in fact, a year later on, Sarah Wollaston, who was another Tory MP, was on the radio saying that he is still lying about this, and we ought not to be, because and as it's turned out, the 350 million. Well, where is it? Well, weirdly, the NHS has been given a whole bunch of money by our new Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak. In that montage, what's interesting is that the only one who isn't hedging is Anna Soubry, who said, well, yeah, we did lie about that. It wasn't true. And we knew it.
We said it wasn't true.
We said it wasn't
she
true.
said, didn't she?
Yeah. And you go, well, yeah. So she's kind of hedging. It's kind of an inverse hedge, is it? Is it a reverse hedge? What is that? Yeah. So actually, I'm hedging from the what we said by saying, well, we did say it wasn't true. Well, you didn't. That's the most hedge, but also the least hedged. And I did like Rees-Mogg's one, because that was following this guy who went to the Tory party conference that year in October 2016 with a large cheque for £350 million made out to the NHS to try and get a Tory member of Parliament to sign it. And Rees-Mogg, everyone dismissed it as a gimmick. Oh, that's a bit of a gimmick. You're having a laugh there. Yeah, not like the one that you had, guys. And Rees-Mogg, in a very pragmatic way, dismissed it by saying, I haven't got £350 million in my personal account. Well, yes, you have.
Yeah, he probably has, yeah.
And he can't sign on behalf of Her Majesty's government. Okay, fair enough, yeah. But yes, he definitely has. Okay, so example number 2 I've got is bang up to date. So this is Priti Patel, our alliterative perma-smirking Home Secretary, because she's got no time for G's on the end of anything with an ing. For our smiling, grinning Priti, she's too busy showing her teeth and exuding grim determination. And on the 19th of February 2020, she announced before coronavirus all happened, she announced a points-based immigration system to stop low-skilled, low-wage workers that we've come to rely on coming into the UK from the EU.
Low skill, low wage, low cost labour coming in from the EU, which we have become dependent upon through our membership of the European Union and through free movement of labour. Our approach to the points-based system is for the brightest and the best. It's for the high skills that we do need to be a highly productive, highly efficient and highly dynamic economy.
So there's this kind of position that she seems to be holding, that we don't want this to be happening. There's something wrong with that. Whereas there was a study done by an organisation called Migration Observatory, which estimated that there are 500,000 EU workers in low-skilled jobs in the UK, 132 in elementary cleaning jobs, 132,000, that was 120,000 in basic hospitality jobs such as coffee shops, 96,000 in warehouses, 91,000 in factory plants, 26,000 on building sites, 89 were truck, van and taxi drivers, 82,000 worked in care services, 74,000 in food processing, 68,000 as shop assistant and 54,000 in other administrative jobs. All the kinds of jobs that are currently, pretty much identified in the UK as essential workers and are encouraged to stay at work, keep serving the economy. In fact, the economy is being powered by them to enable people to work at home. They're only able to do that if they can go to the supermarket, still get, healthcare, get parcels delivered. All of those kind of low-skilled jobs turn out to be essential. And on the 23rd of March, so 3 days ago, Stephen Double, the Conservative MP, pointed this out, and Priti Patel seemed to have hedged her position as in response.
One of the things that this current crisis is teaching us is that many people that we consider to be low-skilled are actually pretty crucial to the smooth running of our country and are in fact recognised as key workers. So would my right honourable friend perhaps consider that once we're through this situation, we review our points-based immigration system to reflect the things that we've learned during this time?
My honourable friend makes a very, very important point, and we've never said that people at lower skill levels are unimportant. And as we know right now, through this crisis, everybody is making a tremendous contribution and effort when it comes to keeping all services functioning and running, while at the same time ensuring care and compassion for workers and service provision that is essential right now. We will absolutely, through the points-based immigration system, as I have already committed, to keep all aspects of that under review. But the important thing with the points-based system is that we will ensure that points are tradable based on the skills and the labour market need that is required across particular sectors.
So there's the hedging going on in there, that she would keep this under review and that the points-based system would alter as the market demands, or the labour market demands. So when there are a need for essential workers, who aren't rocket scientists but are able to keep the supermarkets running, then the implication seems to be that they will score higher points. And when she says that low skilled workers aren't important, well, that's exactly what it means. The points based system.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how you measure their importance, is based on how many points they're worth. How many points they've got.
But it's just.
But we never said that. We never said that.
No, never said that. I've always said that they're important. And you go, well, no, you haven't. That's exactly what you haven't said. And as an extra bonus, see, I'm predicting a future hedge is growing as we speak, insofar as new hospitals are now being built at the Excel Centre, Exhibition Centre in East London, and also the exhibition centres in Birmingham and Manchester are becoming temporary hospitals. And retired staff are not yet fully done their final exams. Medical staff are working for the NHS. Okay, I might be about to commit a fallacy, but I predict that this will be used to show that when Matt Hancock and Boris Johnson both said, when we covered it in episode 39, Invincible Ignorance, that the Tories have promised more hospitals and more nurses, this will turn out to have been it. They will hedge that. They will say, well, as we always said.
We did, yes. Yeah, we said that we would, and then we did.
This is what we did. Yeah. There's the hedge right there happening. Well, there we are, of course, REM with the only possible song to play. It's the end of the world as we know it. I feel fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So, in the Fallacy in the Wild, we like to talk about the Fallacy of the Week from a non-political perspective. And this week, our first example comes from the best romantic comedy ever made, which is When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah.
And this is from early on in the film. If you haven't seen When Harry Met Sally, honestly, what have you been doing with your lives? I mean, there's plenty of time now. Seek it out.
Yeah.
Get it. Download it from somewhere. You can watch it. But this is the kind of first meeting between Harry and Sally is when they drive from Chicago to New York when they're going to college. And this is later on, a few years later, they meet on a plane.
You were a good friend of...
Amanda's. I can't believe you can't remember her name.
What do you mean? I can remember Amanda, right? Amanda Rice.
Reese,
right. That's what I said. Whatever happened to her?
I have no idea.
You have no idea? You were really good friends with her. We didn't make it because you were such good friends.
You went with her.
And was it worth it? The sacrifice for a friend that you don't even keep in touch with?
Harry, you might not believe this, but I never considered not sleeping with you a sacrifice.
Fair enough. Fair enough. You were going to be a gymnast.
A journalist.
Right, that's what I said.
So
Yeah, that's fundamentally it, isn't it? Yeah. Right, that's what I said. Yeah.
yeah, this is a really quick example of hedging.
Yeah.
Because Harry is immediately called out and just claims that he said the thing that is the right answer.
Yeah.
And he does that a couple of times. Now, our second example is also from When Harry Met Sally, and it's just kind of a few moments later as they're walking through the airport. And one of the things that they talked about on their journey from Chicago to New York was Harry's theory that men and women can't ever be friends because the sex part always gets in the way.
Would you like to have dinner? Just friends.
I thought you didn't believe men and women could be friends.
When did I say that?
On the ride to New York.
No, I never said this. Yes, that's right. They can't be friends. Unless both of them are involved with other people, then they can. This is an amendment to the earlier rule. If the two people are in relationships, the pressure of possible involvement is lifted. That doesn't work either, because what happens then is the person you're involved with can't understand why you need to be friends with the person you're just friends with. Like it means something is missing from the relationship and why do you have to go outside to get it? Then when you say, no, it's not true, nothing is missing from the relationship, the person you're involved with then accuses you of being secretly attracted to the person you're just friends with, which you probably are. I mean, come on, who the hell are we kidding? Let's face it. Which brings us back to the earlier rule before the amendment, which is men and women can't be friends. So where does it leave us?
Harry, goodbye.
So this is an interesting one because Harry kind of tries to hedge. He tries to change his original idea that men and women can't be friends and claim that actually this is an amendment. He kind of owns up to the fact that he's amending it because there's a new rule. But then he goes back to his original idea and says, yeah, actually they can't be friends. So yeah, he's kind of changing it twice in a way and sticking to his original at the same time. So yeah. It's a great film. So
it reminds me of in a way of Waldorf and Statler. There's a bit where they're sitting in the box at the Muppet Show and they're going, "God, that was terrible. I hated it, except for that bit. I really liked it. Yeah, me too. We love it." Yeah.
Yeah. So changing opinion in the same breath almost.
Yeah.
So one kind of real life example that comes up related to media a lot is a thing called retconning, which is where people in a series of books or a TV show or a series of films with sequels and stuff change the canon, change the continuity, and act like it's always been like that.
Right.
and just make out that nothing's really changed. The most egregious version of this was one that we've mentioned in passing before, which is series 9 of Dallas. The last scene in the last episode, May 16th, 1986. Pam Ewing woke up and heard the shower on and went into the bathroom, opened up the shower, and there was Bobby Ewing, who had died in the last episode of the 1984-85 season when he had been run over. So basically, they brought Bobby back, and in that said that this had all been a dream. The entire season 9 had been a dream. And none of the stuff that had happened in season 9 really happened in the show. And so immediately, in one fell swoop, they got rid of several characters who'd been introduced in season 9. They brought back several characters who had died during season 9 because it had been a dream. And just pretended that none of that had happened.
No,
and
carried on. Yeah.
Wow. And one of the weirdest things was there was a spin-off from Dallas called Knots Landing, which used a lot of the same characters, had at least characters who were kind of tangential to the Ewing family. And there were crossover episodes and the kind of same storylines were happening and characters would move between the two shows. At this point, the people who made Knots Landing were not involved in the decision to bring Bobby back and call season 9 a dream. And they were really pissed off about it.
Yeah.
And several things in their show had changed during that period, kind of consequent to Bobby dying. So they didn't know what to do, and they decided, fuck that, we're just going to keep going So in Knots Landing, Bobby was still dead and all of the stuff happened.
Wow.
And in Dallas, he was alive again and it had all been a dream. And from that point on, there were no more crossover episodes, no more kind of switching characters.
So there's like a parallel universe going on. Wow. It's a bit like the edicts that go out in the novel 1984, where, the Ministry of Truth is constantly rewriting history because we've always been at war with Eurasia. We've never been at war with the other lot, and and their entire department is about going through all the newspapers to change that those historical bits. So and occasionally, and I think even Winston finds an example of some history from the last time the hedging was done and the story was changed, and he's got one and it doesn't match with everything else, and that's what gets him into trouble.
So we're gonna play fake news, folks. I love the game. It's a great game. I understand the game as well as anybody.
Yes, it's time for Fake News, the game where I read out 3 Trump quotes, 2 of which are real and 1 I made up, and Mark has to figure out which one is fake news.
Yeah, you see, now this game, right? So you maintain that I'm losing, but it's only because what we're doing in your set of rules is that I've got to score more than you, and actually all I need to do is just score some of them, and that's a perfectly reasonable stance to take. And actually, when I say some of them, I mean like 1 or 2 of them is enough to score. Well, when I say 1 or 2, what I actually mean, and which is I've always maintained this, is that in order to win, I don't need to score anything. So what I'm doing is just a bonus. And
No, I've never said you're losing. I've always said you're doing really well in this game. So, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So, the theme this week, the shared item between these quotes is basically that these are all about coronavirus. They are all from a kind of one of Trump's standing by the White House lawn press conferences that he does, and they're all from February 28th. So they are kind of into the coronavirus, but not where we are now. Yeah. So, statement number 1. Some countries you see are not doing so good. Others are doing good. We're doing excellent. We're doing an excellent job. And I think a lot of that is down to the great doctors and the great everybody who is doing such a good job. If we didn't have the people we have, it would be a very different story and not a good story.
Yep. Yeah. Right. We have really good everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. Statement number 2. The 15 people, likewise, we have them down to a much lower number. They're in good shape. Most of them are in really good shape. One of the people is, I wouldn't say not doing well, but is very, very sick. But she's hopefully getting better. But we're at the same number. So essentially we've only had 15. And a lot of that is because I called it early. Statement number 3.
Okay. Right.
We'll just keep doing a good job. We're ordering a lot of supplies, and we're ordering a lot of elements. Frankly, we wouldn't be ordering unless it was something like this. But we're ordering a lot of different elements of medical. We are working on cures, and we're getting some very good results.
Okay. Frankly, we wouldn't be ordering unless it was something like this. We're ordering a lot of those. Well, yeah. That
elements of medical.
A lot of different elements of medical. We're working on cures and we're getting some very good result. Well, no. It's just that bullshit salesman thing, isn't it? And that one of these people, I wouldn't say not doing well, but he's very, very sick. But she's hopefully getting better. This is the same guy that said, don't let them off the cruise ship, because what that will do is double our numbers. And because it's all about numbers when you've got your eye on the election. Oh, God. So the 15 people, likewise, we have the 15 down to a much lower number. So because he called it early, called what early? It's going, here it comes, look out. Okay, yeah, that's making a difference. It's like bloody King Canute sitting there saying, go back. I've called it. I am Trump. Okay, we keep doing a good job. Some countries are not doing so good. Others are doing good. We're doing excellent. We're really doing an excellent job. That's down to the great everybody. Oh my God, they're all such crap, aren't they? God. And they're all just that whole desperate trying to find some positive spin on something or other.
It's the kind of things you say when you really don't know anything.
Yeah,
You just need to keep
they've got
talking.
no grip of it at all, and you've just yes, exactly. At which point, in the UK, Boris would just go, okay, over to the chief medical officer, and just get somebody that has grown up and is responsible to say something. But oh God, right, okay. So I've got to pick one out of these nonsensical things. Okay. Now the 15, I remember he's talking about the 15, and like the very next day it went up to 34 or something. So I think that one's probably real. Okay. We wouldn't be ordering this unless I want that one because I just want to hear him say it. So it's a great everybody that we were saying as well. Okay, right. I'm going to go for, I think number 1 is the one that you made up.
Okay, so of the other two, which are you more convinced that he said?
The 15, because the other one I think is wishful thinking. I just wanted to say it.
So
15 people, yeah. So number 2, I'm more confident about.
So statement
Confidence
number 2
is the wrong word.
Is
Yeah.
real.
The 15 people, likewise, we have them down to a much lower number. They're in good shape. Most of them are in really good shape. One of the people is, I wouldn't say not doing well, but she's very sick, but she's hopefully getting better. But we're at the same number. Essentially we've only had 15, and a lot of that's because I called it early.
Well, there's hedging going on in there straight away, isn't it? They're good shape. Most of them are in good shape. One of them is, well, I wouldn't say not doing well, but is very sick, but is hopefully getting better. And we're at the same number as when I started this sentence. So essentially, we've only had 15. Oh, and just to remind you, I'm responsible for the success of everything. This is because I called it.
Yeah.
God,
and
just in
to
case
be
we
fair,
forgot.
to him, he is responsible for there only being 15 at that point, because he's responsible for the lack of testing that showed them that they had way more than 15 cases at that point.
And he wouldn't let the people off the cruise ship.
Yeah.
So it would have gone. It would have been more.
So
it is
thanks
the fact
to
that
him.
we're counting only 15. Yeah.
It's thanks to him that at that point they only knew they had 15 confirmed cases. Yeah. So you also think statement number 3 is real, or you would like statement number 3 to be real?
I would like statement number 3 to be real. Yeah.
And statement number 3 is real.
We'll just keep doing a good job. We're ordering a lot of supplies. We're ordering a lot of elements that, frankly, we wouldn't be ordering unless it was something like this. But we're ordering a lot of different elements of medical. We are working on cures, and we're getting some very good results.
What? That's just... Why don't you... What? He said nothing at all. He said less than nothing.
We're ordering things
that we wouldn't have ordered unless it was something like this. Well,
this is the thing. This is what you get when you are completely unwilling to learn anything. If you don't... he's in... even by this point, end of February, he was in rooms with doctors and experts talking about this stuff. It's clear he didn't take anything in at all because he's just not interested in it. He would know, he should know, as president, what kind of things they're ordering if they were ordering stuff. Based on the shortages that they've had, I don't think they were ordering a lot of supplies at that point. But
No,
but if they were,
lot
he
of
should know what
elements.
they were, rather than just having to say elements of medical.
Elements of medical. What is that? Elements of medical. That's a brilliant album title, isn't it? Elements of medical. That's by Dr. Feelgood, obviously. Wow, that is just nonsense, isn't it? If you were you do the well, he's never going to do the right thing because it moves the spotlight away from him. But you would just go, okay, I don't know how to answer that question. I'm going to put you on to the head of pandemic. Oh no, I've dismantled that entire department. So that's why because I can do a better job. People often wonder how.
Because we can get them back.
Stuff.
We can get them back if we need them.
Yeah.
That's what you do
what I mean?
with like, it's like firemen. If you need you don't employ firefighters when there isn't a fire. You wait for there to be a fire, and then you put a job ad in the paper, and
then
wait for some people to apply, and then train them.
Yeah, exactly. I would apply, but I've got no skills in firefighting because there's never been any requirement for firefighters. Yeah. So, yeah. Oh, God, it makes your head hurt, doesn't it?
So that means that statement number 1 was indeed made up by me.
Right. Pretty damn good, though. Yeah. And my favourite bit is down to the great doctors and the great everybody who's doing such a good job. If we didn't have the people, we wouldn't have the people. Yeah.
The great everybody was pretty close to something he did actually say in that,
in
that section. So yeah.
Oh God.
He was floundering for basically about 5 minutes while people asked him questions, and then he went, and I think I can go now. And then they asked him a couple more questions.
God damn it.
So all of that means that you have won this week.
Oh,
and I think this is like your 3rd in a row. 3.
Oh, what? No.
Something like that. Yeah.
No.
So you are now on 19 out of 46, which is 41%.
A little above average. Yeah.
It's doing well. As I've always said, you're doing very well in this.
Yeah. Never let it be said that I haven't said this. Yes.
The UK is finally locked down, and I know that other places that our listeners are, like California, Illinois, and other places are also locked down. So you're at home with nothing to do now, and some of you have kids to entertain, and you must have run out of board games now.
And you must be dreaming of escape.
Yes.
Yeah.
So why not try an escape room that you can do in your own home?
Can't wait to get one of these.
I know, it's brilliant. You can get these things. You can get escape rooms from a company called Escape the Crate, who was our sponsor this week. So if you go to fallaciostrump.com/escape, you can find out all about their latest escape room box, and you can sign up and get an escape room in your house and give you something to do while you have nothing else to do and while you are locked in your house. And you can get a new box every 2 months, depending on how long this keeps going on.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, I reckon you'd get 3, probably.
Probably.
Prediction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, once you've done one, you'll kind of go, why have we never done this before? And then you could pack them all up and then put them outside somebody else's door, and then socially distance responsibly and allow them to have it. You'd have to wipe it down with sanitizer first. Yeah.
So fallaciostrump.com/escape. It's time for the part of the show that this week at least is called Misinformation is Not a Logical Fallacy. Now, we talk a lot about Trump's misinformation, but there's stuff out there all the time, and especially, I think, now, it seems, about the coronavirus. There are official places like the WHO and the CDC who are trying to give the right answers and all of the correct information, and there are lots of people using it as an excuse to just talk nonsense. And unfortunately, in some cases, this can be quite dangerous. But really, or in other cases, it's just about people spreading stuff which isn't true. And some of that comes from confirmation bias, where the things that confirm the kind of stuff you already believe are easier to believe, and you maybe accept them with less critical thought, even if you're really trying to think critically and do the right thing like we do. And a couple of weeks ago, a couple of episodes ago, in fact, we kind of in passing talked about a study that said that 38% of Americans would not buy a Corona beer because of the coronavirus. And we were wrong. We didn't. We just heard that it was being reported by lots of places, and we thought that sounds stupid, but Americans are stupid. So that confirmed that we thought there's a 38% section in that country who think Trump is okay. So that sounds about right.
That'll be them.
But so we should have really looked into that before we said it, because it's not true. The survey that was done by a PR firm and then put around everywhere, including CNN and lots of different places, did ask about people's attitudes towards Corona beer. But what they asked in that particular question was, would Americans who drink beer buy a Corona beer under any circumstances now? And 38% said no. But of course, a lot of those just don't like Corona. So that's fine. The number of people who would normally drink Corona or reported that they do regularly drink Corona, who would now stop because of the coronavirus, was actually 4%, which is still crazy. But significantly less numerously crazy than the 38% figure.
So there was a kind of a leap in from premise to conclusion. So they are going, okay, it's beer in the time of the coronavirus. And here's one called Corona. Would you drink this thing? No. And then everybody just fills in the gap, going, that's because it's called Corona. Whereas the beer drinkers are just going, well, no, I just don't drink light beer that's particularly that kind of a flavour. So it would be interesting to see what they would drink to get an idea of why they wouldn't drink the Corona, probably because it's a different kind of beer. It's a light beer rather than an ale, or it's a fruit.
There are many reasons not to drink Corona.
Yeah,
that's fine. Yeah. So what we're saying basically is, when you read something that confirms what you already think, especially in these times when it's all kind of some scary stuff is going on, but also there's a lot of political division, and you read something about Trump supporters that you think, Trump supporters are stupid. It's easy to just believe things that you read without actually looking into them, and we should have done better looking into it, and we will try and do better in future, and try and remind you also to do better when you're doing that and look into stuff. So that happens, and there are some things which come out which sound, plausible but a little bit crazy, and I do tend to, when we decide what things we're going to use for the headlines, I do often go into looking at the details of it and actually find that what's being put out as a tweet isn't quite telling the whole story, and it's not as interesting or as funny or whatever as it seemed in the first place, and we don't end up using it. And sometimes it's I can't quite believe that that's true, and then I look into it and it turns out to be true, and that's kind of scarier in a way. And, and sometimes you come across something which is just fucking insane, like Liz Crokin, who is depending on what podcasts you listen to, you may have come across Liz Crokin before. She is she claims to be a journalist. In fact, I think she's she's had things published in things like The Observer as well. I don't know quite how that's worked. Yeah.
Wow. Or people just quoted her in The Observer.
It's not clear, but she is a fucking nut job. basically. She is a Trump supporter, and she is a QAnon believer. If you haven't come across QAnon, you should look it up because it's insane. But they are all kinds of conspiracy madness. Just the weirdest and craziest and stupidest and most obviously not true conspiracies are tended to be believed by QAnon believers. And we have she posted a video this week about coronavirus and her theories on it and the things she believes. And so we've got a couple of clips from it. I'm going to play one, and then we'll talk about that, and then we'll play another one.
I also believe that this virus was created by the cabal, specifically Bill Gates. And I also believe that the good guys, the white hats, knew that they were going to release this virus, and they intercepted their plans to use this virus as a false flag. And they are now using their plans with the virus against them by using the virus as an excuse to lock down the country and many other countries so the military can go in and safely conduct these raids and military operations to sweep up these criminals.
So,
wow, if you were pitching that as a movie, people would just go, "No, wait a minute, what?" So Bill Gates, right, is going to release. He's made this virus. He's going to release it. Then the good guys intercept that, and then they're going to use it. They've intercepted the plot because they were going to clamp down things. And then Blofeld is busy stroking the white cat. Did you say white cat? And it's just what?
So,
the key thing is right at the beginning. She says, "I believe."
Yeah.
Well, no, you've made it up. I also made up. If you exchange belief with
things
I made up, here's some things I've just invented.
So
then she would have no credence at all.
As with a lot of conspiracy theorists, the main thing is whatever you're being told is the truth is not the truth. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter what the alternative is. It's just, if you believe the story that's being put around by the media that this is an actual virus, you're crazy. You're a sheep.
A fool,
what's really happening, possibly, is that the virus was created by Bill Gates. Unclear why.
Yeah.
Why is that? Usually a lot of Trump supporters, or some Trump supporters at least, the QAnon believing types, have said that this virus is designed to bring down Trump, basically. And it's an attack on Trump for some reason. They don't explain why Italy would be involved in that, or China or Spain or all of the other countries where lots of people are dying.
When Bill Gates is only across the way.
But so Bill Gates created this virus for some unknown reason. The good guys have intercepted the virus, but not done anything about it. Not stopped people. These good guys, they haven't stopped people from dying. They haven't stopped it from spreading around the world or becoming a pandemic. They've used it. They're using it as cover now that everything is shut down to do the military operations safely, the military raids, because a lot of this is the QAnon thing is all based around the fact that celebrities in general are paedophiles. Like politicians, film stars, TV stars, basically anyone rich and famous, probably, if they don't believe in your politics, are a paedophile. And they have big rings of paedophiles, they eat babies, they sell children and all kinds of stuff. And they move around with impunity because they're famous, essentially.
Okay.
Liz Crokin has said before that Tom Hanks didn't have coronavirus. In fact, it was an excuse so that he was out of circulation, basically, an excuse for him to not be seen around because he got arrested for being a paedophile.
Right. What about the people that have been arrested for being paedophiles?
That's something that doesn't come up a lot because this is a a thing that seems unexplained is that first of all, why the military involved in doing these raids and arrests of paedophiles. Secondly,
just the police.
Why what has led anyone to think that we would have a problem with paedophiles being arrested? That they would need to shut anywhere down at any point that any paedophile has been arrested. Everyone, certainly everyone on the left, whether that paedophile is a Republican or a Democrat, has said, "Yeah, fuck them, lock them up, get rid of them."
Too. Yeah,
absolutely. The
law enforcement.
Has anyone tried to say, "Well, that paedophile, he's on our side, so you should let him off"?
Yeah.
The Republicans did try to elect Roy Moore, but the Democrats don't tend to do that. So
no,
I don't understand why they think that you need some kind of cover for the military to go in and make these mass arrests, which have never happened. All of these mass arrests they talk about.
Let's have a global clampdown.
Yeah.
Let's get everybody in the world to do it so that Tom Hanks can get arrested. Yeah. Or move about without being arrested.
Yeah. So that you would think is about as crazy as it could get.
Right. Yeah.
And then
crazy.
And then she keeps talking.
Right.
There's a lot of Anons that believe that the White Hats tainted the elite's adrenochrome supply with the coronavirus. And that's why so many members of the elites are getting the coronavirus, if indeed they do have the coronavirus. So adrenochrome is a drug that the elites love. It comes from children. The drug is extracted from the pituitary gland of tortured children. It's sold on the black market. It's the drug of the elites. It's their favorite drug. It is beyond evil. It's demonic. It is so sick. So there is a theory that the White Hats tainted their adrenochrome supply with the coronavirus.
So, yeah. So adrenochrome is, according to the QAnons, a drug which is extracted from basically sexually abused children. And it comes... And she says it's from the pituitary gland, but surely it would come from the adrenal gland. That's where adrenaline, which Americans call epinephrine, comes from. So that doesn't make sense. But yeah, they think that it is because of these terrified children in awful situations somehow create this thing. And then the elites...
That's why so many members of the elites are getting the coronavirus. Maybe we just get to see the people that have got the coronavirus because they're in the public eye.
Yeah. Maybe it's because it's news if Tom Hanks gets it or Idris Elba gets it. And it's not news if Mary down the street gets it.
Yeah. Because nobody, they go, who? Who is that? Yeah. Well, that's obviously because she hasn't got a supply of adrenochrome. It also sounds like something from Brave New World, doesn't it? Like Soma. It's what the fuck?
It doesn't explain why so many people who aren't elites are getting it. That doesn't.
Yeah.
Unless they're somehow also adrenochrome addicts.
See, I was going to explain her position there. I was naturally going, oh no, because what she's saying is the reason the elites are getting it is because the good guys have poisoned their supply. They haven't prevented the torture and removal of the fluid from the pituitary glands of children.
No, they've just
they've just spiked the drug in order to give it to them. So everybody else who's got it, they've just got it by normal means. The elites wouldn't get it any other way other than if you spiked, because what adrenochrome does is give you immunity from absolutely everything. Did you not know that?
This is like the absolute opposite of Occam's razor. There are so many assumptions you need to make for this to be true.
Yeah,
it's like, what is the least likely thing to actually be happening? When the options are there is a virus that anyone can get and celebrities are people. That is a possible reason why they're getting it. Or
and
celebrities
normally,
are paedophiles who take drugs which are extracted from the glands of
the
children.
good guys who intercepted it from Bill Gates, who was going to release it in order to bring down Trump. You see, basically, it's a distraction technique in the same way that Trump uses it in order to blame other people for his lack of leadership and being able to do anything positive or to do anything about it or to do anything with a kind of humanity involved. And so it can't possibly be anything to do with that as to why he won't get re-elected, because people have come to their senses. It's down to Bill Gates trying to bring about this thing to bring down Trump. Meanwhile, it got thwarted on the way, as in all good sci-fi thrillers. The original plot goes off at a tangent because the good guys intercept it and then poison the adrenochrome for the elites, which is why Idris Elba has got it.
Yes, simple.
It's simple. It's plain, and the whole thing that the whole assumption you've got to begin with is that she says, "I believe."
Yeah.
And I also believe if you just, every time somebody says, "I believe," you just change that to, "I just made up."
Also, she brilliantly, in the middle of that section, which was all about her theory of why elites have coronavirus, and it is, she's built up several levels that explains it. In the middle of it, she says, if they even have it.
Yeah.
So she's prepared to throw out the possibility that there doesn't need to be an explanation for the elites having coronavirus, because maybe they don't even really have it at all.
Don't have it.
So none of that was necessary.
No.
These two things are completely opposite, but I can hold them both in my head at the same time and believe them both. What we're saying, what we're saying is, if you hear stuff which sounds a little bit implausible or doesn't necessarily confirm what you already think, or does confirm what you already think, it's worth looking into, unless it's some stupid crap like this.
But I guess that's the thing, is because we don't belong to the QAnon conspiracy theorists system of beliefs, we don't have a cognitive bias towards that.
Yeah.
So whereas we do have a cognitive bias towards, there are enough stupid people to make 38% statistic plucked out of the air to stop drinking Corona based on the fact that it's about the coronavirus. We're convinced by that. We're bought into that. You've got to try and maintain that independence of thought so that you're aware of your cognitive bias, either to the extent that it leans you towards believing something or it leans you away from believing something else. And finally, some things we really don't have time to talk about.
After a bit of pressure from the media, Trump finally agreed to take the coronavirus test, which is basically a quite deep nasal swab. And when asked about how it was, gave a totally normal answer that a person who definitely took the test would have given.
Not something I want to do every day, I can tell you that. It's, it's a little bit of good doctors in the White House, but it's a test. It's a medical test. Nothing pleasant about it.
So, he didn't take the test.
No.
The White House doctor claims Trump tested negative, but then that's the same guy who said Trump was 6'3" and 243 pounds and predicted that he would remain healthy for the remainder of his presidency and beyond. So, Given that he's in his 70s, generally unhealthy and can't stop shaking people's hands, Trump really should take the test. You may speculate, as some have, that Trump is paranoid about his DNA falling into the wrong hands due to the fact that one of the women accusing Trump of rape has requested his DNA to help prove her case. But given that he's afraid of stairs, Mexicans, germs, exercise, Hillary, combat zones, strong women, women of colour, strong women of colour, and medium rare steaks, chances are you can just add Q-tips to that list.
Yeah. And given the fact that all the other tests that he's ever done, they've all come back positive.
Yeah.
Yeah. All my tests are positive. That's why, we don't even need to do it. I love that. It's just a little bit of good doctors in the White House. Obviously, there's a bit there where you've just missed something out. That's kind of the ticker tape went in his head at that point. Yeah. So, as ever, why use your staff to protect and serve the increasingly sickening American people when you can just get them to find someone to blame for what's happening that isn't you, your administration, and your patent incompetence to run a bath, let alone a country? Well, old, frail and vulnerable upcoming election sufferer Donald T got Mike Pompeo to do some of the shit stirring at the G7 conference, where, having at first refused to talk about the virus at all, like it isn't the biggest thing threatening the 7 biggest global economies, finally giving in, Mike insisted on calling it the Wuhan virus, despite the rest of the entire planet calling it COVID-19 to rhyme with Gove, notwithstanding Michael Gove calling it COVID-19 not to rhyme with Gove. Intent on pointing a non-hand sanitised finger away from the orange pustule, Pompeo insisted at the meeting that China deliberately concealed evidence of the virus. Well, he should know, because that's exactly what Trump's been up to. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing. You know, all those deaths and infections that are affecting millions of the poor and unemployed in America, that's not because of China. It's because of the arrogance and vanity of your president. Not China's, yours.
9 days ago, as of this recording, Trump activated the Defense Production Act, which gives him the right to compel companies to produce items such as ventilators and PPE. Since everyone has basically too many ventilators and hospital masks at the moment and no healthcare professionals are forced to wear swimming goggles when treating patients, Trump has held off on actually invoking those powers because he's a fucking wuss and doesn't want to upset the CEOs who pretend to like him. Today, however, he tweeted, "As usual, with this General Motors, things just never seem to work out. They said they were going to give us 40,000 much-needed ventilators very quickly. Now they're saying it will only be 6,000 in late April, and they won't top dollar. Always a mess with Mary B. Invoke P." In a later tweet, he clarified that Invoke P means the Defense Production Act. I mean, there's a P in it, I suppose.
Yeah.
What's still not clear is whether Trump thought tweeting Invoke P would actually have some effect, like Michael Scott shouting, "I declare bankruptcy!" Anyway, some people who understand it better than he does probably explained it to him, because the White House later released a statement saying Trump had signed a presidential memorandum to that effect.
So, what's worse than any virus? Ignorance and mis- and disinformation. Lupus, motor neurone and malaria are recognised pretty bad but treatable things. Treatable by tested science-based solutions using chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine. They are effective for the 1.5 million lupus sufferers and thousands of malaria sufferers who now face a shortage of the drug because Trump says it works against coronavirus. He's not a doctor. Hell, he's barely human, but he's a businessman with an eye on re-election. If he can blame science itself for not seeing the link between an old available drug that won't take years to test and curing this thing in time for the Dow to reopen on Monday, then he's not responsible. Meanwhile, the man who is responsible, Anthony Fauci, says there is no substantive proof, at least yet, that either drug worked in the battle against the deadly pandemic. The information you're referring to specifically is anecdotal. Yes, Trump's anecdote. He's pitching himself, i.e. the people, against science. He's making science into the guise that will let more people die before they make it available to use. Okay, what about the people with lupus whose lungs fill with water and die without it? And them's the facts. They ain't going to vote for you when they're drowned.
Well, the Republicans have finally reached their logical conclusion and started calling for old people to be sacrificed to save the stock market. Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick was first to volunteer as tribute on Tucker Carlson's show, saying, "No one reached out to me and said, as a senior citizen, are you willing to take a chance on your survival in exchange for keeping the America that all America loves for your children and grandchildren? But if they had, if that's the exchange, I'm all in." Dan Patrick doesn't seem to be an outlier in the pro-life party, with Fox's Brit Hume calling Patrick's suggestion an entirely reasonable viewpoint, and writers on the Federalist and right-wing Christian site First Things echoing similar views. But hey, is it really patriotic enough just to let the old people die to save the economy? Unemployment is up by over 3 million and it's getting worse by the day. Time is of the essence, Republicans. Start leaving the gas on in your grandparents' houses today. On advice from our lawyers, please don't take grandparent killing advice from a podcast.
In another reference to Victor Kiam, ever oblivious to just how hideously self-serving he is, Trump tried to buy the company, developing a coronavirus vaccine, not invest in it, not add solvency to Tubugan-based company CureVac in an act of altruism for the world, an act, let's face it, that would have guaranteed re-election for such a selfless, outward-looking, global-facing example of humanity at its best. But of course not. The German government confirms the Trump administration offered large sums of money to move the whole research wing of the outfit to the US to make the vaccine. Get this, purely for America. Yeah. Okay, up till now it's been horrid but laughable because it's only affects the USA that he's a short-sighted, short-tempered, short little attention span moral pygmy. But this is actually a potential crime against humanity. It's Hague material, for Christ's sake, to block access to research findings and cures to the whole of the planet just so he looks good at election time. Look upon your work, America, and despair.
Now, this is one of those stories which I thought that can't be true. And I spent some time looking into it and tried to kind of debunk it, and it kind of seems to be true. The company, a few days after this, came out and said, "Oh no, we haven't heard anything from Trump about wanting to buy us at all. Nothing like that at all." But their major investor, their main investor, said, they did. They had an offer from Trump, and they came to me about it and said, "Should we do it?" And we said no. And the German government have said, that definitely happened.
Yeah, that definitely happened.
And the company, CureVac, has had 3 CEOs in the space of a couple of months. The first one was let go shortly after having a meeting with Trump. But the company has said, that was nothing to do with it, completely unrelated. And the second one left because of health reasons, nothing to do with coronavirus. So
everything.
It does seem like he did try and get an exclusive access to a vaccine. So,
and this in a world where Elon Musk has said has bought up all the ventilators he could get his hands on and donated them to New York.
Yeah.
And you kind of think, well, he's a crazy motherfucker at the best of times. He's going to be the next president with doing those kind of acts where he was going, and we'll stop making cars, we'll start making ventilators, and we'll give them away. And that's why, Trump, if Trump could just get out of his own way for a second and stop taking, General Motors to task about the price, just go give them to us. If you're going to spend your money buying the coronavirus vaccine, you can spend your money. It's not even your money. Spend it getting ventilators for ordinary people so they don't die.
Well, it's finally happened. In a world that has never seemed more divided, a politician has come along who has united key figures on the right and the left in truly bipartisan agreement over what a fucking arsehole Kentucky Republican Congressman Thomas Massie is. After both parties had agreed on a $2.2 trillion stimulus package in response to the coronavirus, the House had planned to confirm it with a voice vote on Friday morning, which simply needs a majority of those present to say aye. And which could have been done with the hundreds of congresspeople staying home to avoid unnecessary travel and risk of spreading or contracting the virus. Massie, however, indicated that he might request a recorded vote, which would delay passage of the bill and require at least 216 members to be physically present. Congresspeople raced back to Washington, spending at least $200,000 of taxpayer money, and defeated Massie's attempt, passing the bill. The best of many excoriating attacks on Massie came from former Secretary of State John Kerry, who tweeted, "Breaking news. Congressman Massie has tested positive for being an arsehole. He must be quarantined to prevent the spread of his massive stupidity."
That's excellent. Over here in the UK, Health Secretary Matt Hancock, Chief Medical Officer Chris Whitty, and now, in the spirit of the oft-repeated slogan, doing the right thing at the right time and suppress those cheers, Boris himself have all tested positive for coronavirus, which surely raises the question how come they got to be tested when testing of frontline NHS health staff has apparently been so hard to achieve. Meanwhile, in a week when Jeremy Corbyn faced Boris at Prime Minister's questions for probably the last time as leader of the Labour Party, the UK has got a government based pretty much on the socialist principles he's so long espoused and had such a hard time getting voted for. The government is basically paying everyone's wages. It's effectively nationalised the railways. It's massively funded the NHS and elevated the manual worker to the level of Vera Mukini's monument that towered over the 1937 Paris Exposition, even joining in with the nationwide clap for carers public applause on Thursday night. Corbyn is careful not to gloat too much, but continues to remind the Tories to make sure they do what they have promised to do and right now, and that those high-skilled, highfalutin bankers and financial service wallers, beloved of the Conservatives since Thatcher's 80s yuppies, are having to rely on the essential services of the so-called low-skilled checkout girl and humble postman to survive. As Karl Marx recommended, the workers are finally being seen to be the owners of the means of production after all.
So that's all the bad arguments and faulty reasoning we have time for this episode. You can find the show notes at fallacioustrump.com, and if you hear Trump say something stupid and want to ask if it's a fallacy, our contact details are on the contact page.
If you think we've used a fallacy ourselves, let us know. And if you've had a good time, give us a review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can support the show at patreon.com/ftrump, just like our newest patron, Schmoots.
You can connect with us and other listeners in the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/fallacioustrump.
All music is by The Outbursts and was used with permission. So till next time on Fallacious Trump, we'll leave the last word to the Donald.
That's right. Go home to mommy. Bye. Bye.
Yes, it's time for Fake News, the game where I read it. Well, I'll try that again in English without it being so shit.
Yeah.